व्यासपीठावरील आणि सभागृहातील मान्यवर, मेहरुन्निसा भाभी आणि मित्र, 3 जोरदार भाषणं झालेली आहेत. रामचंद्र गुहा म्हणाले तशा भरपूर सिक्सर्स कुमार खेतकरांनी मारलेले आहेत आणि 3 भाषणानंतर शेवटचं भाषण करणं हे अधिक कठीण असतं. मी बहुतेक भाग माझ्या भाषणाचा आपल्यासमोर इंग्रजीतून ठेवणार आहे, कारण माझं भाषण रामचंद्र गुहा आणि इतरही काही मंडळींनी समजलं जावं, त्यांना समजावं या दृष्टीने ते मांडणार आहे. मी बिफोर कमिंग टू सुप्रीम कोर्ट, I was the Chief Justice in Madras High Court. Wherever I went, I tried to speak in Tamil 2 sentences. Sahodar Sahodarigalе Yellurakam Vanakkam, Nandrage Tamilil Pese Pudiyat, Adanal Non Englishil Virumbagiren. बंधू भगिनींनो, सर्वांना नमस्कार. मला तमिळमध्ये बोलता येत नाही आणि म्हणून मी इंग्लिशमध्ये बोलणार आहे. हे बोलल्यानंतर टाळ्यांचा कडकडाट व्हायचा. Yesterday Ramchandra Guha spoke about the chauvinism with respect to language in Maharashtra. It is adequately present in Tamil Nadu. But that apart, today I am going to speak more in English and less in Marathi. It is the reverse thing that I am going to do. To begin with, I must thank Vinod Shirsat for inviting me to speak about Hamid Bhai. That was principally because I had a very long association with him during my days in the youth movement. You have heard Kumar Khetkar, able editor of Lok Satta. He has contributed one of his collections, Badalte Vishwa, that is the changing world, is well known. The other speaker is equally well known. I am not that well known, though I am trying to place my views before you. As was stated by Shirsat, we must thank Kumuttai Karkare for translating the book of Ramchandra Guha, and we must also thank Milind Champanerkar for translating the work of Hamid Bhai. And before all of them, of course, we must thank Dilip Chitre, who got Hamid Bhai's writings reduced to English language. And it is only because of that that people like Ramchandra Guha and many others came to know about Hamid Bhai. Ramchandra Guha is known for, I in fact heard him first in Delhi when I was in Supreme Court, and he had come to deliver the Tarkunde Memorial Lecture. And the next time I heard him in Washington, I happened to be visiting US, and he was there giving lectures in the American universities. And our ambassador over there had invited him, and I had the good fortune to have an interaction with him. Today, while speaking about all these topics which are before us, we must remember that we are in the days of post-truth. Now, this concept post-truth has been recognized by Oxford Dictionary as the most used term of 2016. It is supposed to describe a situation where objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. In the judicial jargon, I may say, Ramchandra Guha, however, tries to place the facts and the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Indira after Gandhi, makers of Modern India, Gandhi Before India, and recently published Democrats and Dissenters. These are some of his well-known works. This is apart from his writings on anthropology, cricket, and variety of things. This very collection which is being published today will give you an idea about the wide sweep that he has on various subjects. Ramchandra Guha was introduced to Madhavrao Gadgil by his father when he was just 23 years old. And well, it was thought that he will go into anthropology, but he went for economics and has finally landed into history. Before I speak about Hamid Bhai, I must outset say that, well, while dealing with translations, it is not an easy job to do. And along with Dilip Chitre, we have felicitated Vijaya Tai. Vijaya Tai helped Dilip Chitre in translating Indhan into fuel. And in the very first sentence of that translation, Dilip Chitre has acknowledged his date to Vijaya Tai as one who has translated, helped him. He has used the word collaborated. That's not a very good word, but he has used it. And he has said that she collaborated with me in translating this book. And I am happy that she is over here. Dilip Chitre uses a classical adjective to describe this novel Indhan as a novel of universal relevance. He places Hamid Bhai, his work, along with that of Bhaupadhyay, Bhalchandra Nemade, and Baburao Bagul, the four of whom ushered in a new Marathi fiction in 1960s. It is these articles which are translated by Dilip Chitre, which have finally helped, or rather led Ramchandra Guha to include Hamid Bhai amongst the makers of modern India. I will hereafter deal with three aspects concerning Hamid Bhai's life. Firstly, his life. Secondly, his contribution as a literary figure. And then his views on social reform. There are many youngsters here, and they may not be aware about the struggle that Hamid had to put in. Born in a small town near Chiplun in Konkan in 1932, Hamid was influenced by the progressive ideas of Rashtra Seva Dal at a time when Muslims, young Muslims in pre-partition time were wearing the Turkish face caps. Hamid used to wear the Gandhi topi. After his matriculation in his village, he came to Mumbai for higher education and also to make a living. He joined Ismail Yusuf College, but could not make a progress beyond inter-arts. He got a job in railways, but there was a strike, and against the advice of his superiors, he joined that strike and he was dismissed. He tried running the business of selling boxes and also a transport business, but there also he did not succeed. Subsequently, he joined Daily Maratha, which was edited by Acharya Atre, the legendary editor. During all this period, he was writing short stories based on his own experiences of life and in the slums of Mumbai and ghettos of Mumbai. His first collection of short stories was published in 1961 under the title Lat or Wave. These short stories show his deep insight into the human mind. One of the stories which he had written in 1954 and which was not included in Lat under the title Dharma is a most remarkable one. I cannot resist the temptation of telling you that story. Thank you. Hamid Bhai, you must remember, this story is written in 1954 and Hamid Bhai was just 22 years of age at that time. And it describes the Muslim psyche immediately before and after independence and partition. The protagonist of the story is the author himself. He is a young Muslim boy who is wearing the Gandhi cap. His name is also Hamid. It tells us about one Khan Sahib who comes from Kolhapur to his village in Konkan on the date of direct action, which was called by Muhammad Ali Jinnah on behalf of Muslim League in 1946. The father of the protagonist warns him in advance, don't talk about politics with Khan Sahib. He knows it better than you. And if you do so, I will thrash you. Khan Sahib comes wearing a Jinnah cap. The other Muslims who are gathered there, they salute him. Khan Sahib comes and sits near the father of the author. He appreciates the photo of Jinnah on the wall. Thereafter he goes out and delivers a fiery speech. Subsequently, he spots the young author wearing a Gandhi cap and standing in a corner. He asks his father, "Who is this boy?" Father informs that he is his son. "Is it so, Umar Sahib? And he is wearing Gandhi topi? I thought he is a servant in your house." Incidentally, Umar Khan was the name of Hamid's father. Next day, Khan Sahib returns to Kolhapur, giving invitation to Umar Sahib and also to author to visit Kolhapur. The author visits Kolhapur after about a year or so and goes to meet Khan Sahib. By that time, partition has already taken place. Khan Sahib had a good-looking daughter. He introduces her to the author and offers him tea and biscuits. He tells him that she is well trained in Quran and all Muslim practices. The author asks Khan Sahib as to why he did not go to Pakistan since he had espoused the cause of Pakistan. Khan Sahib comments, "Why should it be? Do we not have any rights here? Have these useless people run the government any time? The government should be run by Muslims alone and these people should pay jizya tax." The author comments that was the old story. Khan Sahib retorts, "You have not read the proper books. It is stated in Quran that at the end of the whole world, the entire world will become Muslim and no kafir will survive." Author subsequently returns to Chipadun and then shifts to Mumbai. One day when he is walking on the road, a posh car suddenly comes and stops by his side. Khan Sahib is sitting in that car. He calls the author, "Sheikh Hamid, come here," and takes him in his car to a posh building on Muhammad Ali Road. He informs the author that he had decided to marry his daughter to a rich boy whose family had migrated to Karachi but used to come to India from time to time. Khan Sahib introduces his future son-in-law to the author, shows him the ornaments and saris that were brought for the marriage, and then sadly reflects that his daughter will be now going away. The author asks him, what will he do thereafter? What can I do? Khan Sahib says, I will also go there when my daughter goes to Pakistan. But your government should allow us to go, na? Thereafter he comments on the conflict on Kashmir. See, your Nehru is creating trouble over there, creating trouble for Pakistan. But remember, one Muslim will finish 10 Hindus. You will see that you will be defeated. Sheikh Hamid says, Khuda Hafiz, and returns. A few months later, author happens to visit Kolhapur and then again visits Khan Sahib. He is shocked to learn that the daughter of Khan Sahib has run away with a Hindu boy with the ornaments in the house. Khan Sahib was not in a position to trace her. His health had deteriorated. His house was unattended. When the author meets Khan Sahib laments, for whom should I live anymore? And he starts crying. Within short time, he wipes his tears and then again tells Sheikh Hamid, but listen, I am going to give an advertisement. Let her come back with the boy. He has fallen in love with her. I will pardon him, but we'll see to it that he becomes a Muslim. And Khan Sahib starts crying once again. The story ends there. Now this is the story of a person who was with the Muslim League prior to partition, subsequent to partition. How does he react to the developments around? What happens to his family? It's very interesting to read the original one in Marathi. It is included in the recently published collection Jamila Javed and Itar Katha, Jamila Javed and Other Stories. It is, however, surprising that the stories which were published in the first collection, Lat, in 1961, were not that well received and criticized by a young critic for not having a particular mark. This disillusioned Hamid Bhai. Hamid Bhai and Bhau Badye were thick friends. Bhau's novel Dombaryacha Khel or the play of Dombari, a nomadic tribe, was published at the same time and was very well received. Bhavu describes Hamid of those days in his article published after Hamid's demise. He says Hamid used to have a cigarette, mostly Panama, in one hand, and book of Chekhov or some other celebrated author in the other. He was a good-looking person, but used to wear crumpled dress, unshaven face, and an attitude that unless he becomes an eminent author like Chekhov or Dostoevsky, there was no meaning to his life. Hamid Bhai's father was telling him to come back to his village because Hamid Bhai was not keeping good health. This smoking affected his health and he became a victim of tuberculosis. He went back to his village to improve his health and in those days wrote the celebrated novel Indhan, which is translated by Vijayatai under the title Fuel. This was published in 1965. The protagonist of that novel is also returning home after some 15 years. He finds people whose values and perceptions were in conflict with his own. A changed social order has come about in the village. There are communal tensions building up towards explosive mob fury, which results in a riot during a traditional Hindu folk festival. The novel received State Literary Award in 1966. But that was the time when Hamid decided to get involved into social reforms and wider politics. He was married in the meanwhile with Mehrunisa Bhabhi. Hamid Bhai had to face problems all throughout. His marriage was also opposed by Bhabhi's relatives, but both of them withstood the pressure. Initially they lived in an almost a slum area, but all throughout subsequently in just one-room kitchen apartment in a housing board. He was all throughout being supported single-handedly by the income of Bhabiji, who worked in the Khaji and Village Commission and brought up the two daughters. Initially, Bhabhi was not so much in favor of Hamid's activities. She felt extremely worried because of the life. His life was under threat because of whatever activities that he was doing. But later on, accepted him, accepted his ideas, and took the mantle forward. I remember one such meeting which we had organized after the demise of Hamid Bhai. It was at Bombay Central, Bhabhi will remember it, in a thickly Muslim-dominated area. And the same issues, a ban on talaq, progressive ideas in Muslim community, etc., they were all the subjects. Fundamentalist Muslims were demonstrating outside. And in spite of that, we held a meeting just at that time. Hamid Bhai also placed on record that all that he could accomplish, major credit of it goes to Bhabhi. She has also written this in her memoirs, Me Bharun Pavle Hai. It could be roughly translated as, I am more than satisfied. The iniquity in Muslim society and the systemic unfairness to the Muslim women disturbed Hamid Bhai. You are all aware that in 1966, he took out a march, a historic march, demanding a ban on triple talaq. The importance of that event cannot be undermined by pointing out that only 7 persons participated in that, but that it was the first ever demand by Muslims in India for a ban on triple talaq. 50 years later now, it is this demand which is being canvassed in the Supreme Court by Shaira Banu, and thousands of Muslim women are supporting this demand. In 1970, he founded the Muslim Satyashodak Mandal with dedicated colleagues like Sayyid Bhai, Bahumia Bandwale, and quite a few others. It was at that time that I came in contact with Hamid Bhai through his younger brother Hussain, who is now a member of Rajya Sabha. He was a good friend, and we formed a youth organization called as Yuva Kranti Dal, which stood for reform and progress amongst all communities. The riots in Bhiwandi in 1970 disturbed Hamid Bhai like anything. These were the first such major riots in Maharashtra after independence. Hussain, myself and our group, we visited Bhiwandi and we were shocked to see what had happened, the loss of life and the destruction of property. Hamid Bhai and our organization decided to take a stand. We immediately organized a conference in Mumbai at Dadar under the banner Qawmi Ekta Yuva Manch. The auditorium was jam-packed. In his opening speech, Hamid Bhai criticized the Muslim and Hindu fundamentalists for all that had happened in Bhiwandi and lamented that such riots were taking place in the progressive state of Maharashtra, affecting ordinary innocent people. The youth who belonged to a Hindu fundamentalist organization felt annoyed and tried to disturb the meeting. The volunteers of Ukraine saw to it that they were removed from the audience. Thereafter, it was the turn of the youth belonging to a communist organization. According to them, the Muslims were not responsible at all. This position was also opposed by Hamid Bhai, and that group also staged a walkout. Thereafter, the conference proceeded peacefully. The convention passed resolutions for amity, holding both the communalists responsible for the riots and for rendering help to those who were affected. That was the first convention by any such group after those riots. It received wide coverage, and Navshakti, the Marathi daily belonging to the Free Press group, carried the report of the convention at the banner line. Hamid's name became known all over Maharashtra as a secular and a bold activist. Hamid thereafter felt that there was need to unite all secularists under one common and wider platform. It is this which led to the formation of Indian Secular Society. The founding convention took place again in Dadar at Kirti College. Professor M.P. Rege, Professor A.B. Shah, Srimati Laik Fateh Ali, Professor Sinha, and even a politician like George Fernandez attended the founding conference. Earlier, while working in Maratha, Hamid Bhai had written a number of articles on the problems faced by the Muslims and the way ahead for them. The Korgaonkar Trust from Kolhapur gave him a scholarship to go all over India and to observe and comment with respect to whatever that was happening. This led to Hamid Bhai's work, Islam Se Bharatiya Chitra, or Islam in the Indian context. During all this period, he was being condemned by fundamentalist Muslims. He was not being allowed to hold his conferences. He had to face threats to his life, but he persisted, went from place to place, canvassed his views, and the work of Muslim Satyashodak Mandal went on expanding. Today, what we find is that a national conference of Muslim women's rights has been held by the Mandal recently, where from all over India, 300 women attended the conference. It included Shaira Banu, the one who is canvassing for ban on talaq in Supreme Court, Dr. Benazir Tamboli, Advocate Yasmin Sheikh, Dr. Noor Zahir, and so many others. All these efforts of Hamid Bhai affected his health. Earlier he had suffered from tuberculosis and now from kidney failure. He went for transplantation of kidney, donated by a convict, Mr. Dalwai, but it gave him life of just a year and a half. He knew that he did not have much time in hand and intensified his activities. During this period, he was bestowed with the honor of being invited by the American government on the occasion of 200 years of American independence in the year 1976. He was one of the 3 invitees from India. The transplanted kidney did not help Hamid Bhai, as I said, beyond a year and a half. But even in his death, he maintained his principles. He did not want to be buried, and he wanted to be cremated, which he had specifically written down. When Hamid Bhai passed away, his relatives and villagers insisted on taking his body to Chiplur for burial. But Bhabiji and all of us who were with Hamid Bhai during that struggle stood by him. Amongst others, it must be mentioned that Sri Sharad Pawar, who was a minister in the state government in those days, immensely helped Hamid Bhai during his illness and the last days. Just before passing away of Hamid Bhai, the emergency proclaimed by Indira ji was withdrawn. But he felt sad that he was no longer going to be there, because he thought that in the subsequent period he would be able to do something. But then that was not to be. Hamid Bhai was all throughout accused as being anti-Muslim and pro-Hindu communalist. He was neither. He saw the unfortunate condition in which Muslim women were placed because of the unfairness in law and the social order. He had seen the progress made by Hindu women after the reform in Hindu law brought in by Dr. Ambedkar and Nehru. He had noticed the reform which had taken place in Muslim countries like Turkey and Egypt, and always felt that it was only in secular India that Muslims could change their life for betterment. He himself came from a rural background, struggled to make a living, joined the trade union movement and later on the Socialist Party, and came to realize that the Muslim society will not progress unless it changes its attitude and unless it is free from the old dogmatic ideas. He realized that he had to work in the field which he thought was being neglected by the political parties. He was unhappy at the attitude of a large section of Indian Muslims who failed or rather refused to understand the problems before them. And this attitude of seclusion and blaming all others for their own life and ills disturbed Hamid. He canvassed that Muslims ought to consider themselves as a part of the wider society and adopt local languages. He struggled for all this progress led him to study the Indian history, India's partition, the attitude of Muslims prior to partition and thereafter, and also that of the Hindu fundamentals. Due to the paucity of time, I am not going into the aspect of the political stand taken by Hamid Bhai on various other issues. And as I said, I am concentrating on the work that he did for reform in the Muslim society. In the chapter on historical background in Muslim politics in India, he writes, and I quote, "Muslims remained backward because they were religious-bound revivalists who refused to modernize themselves. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in this light appears as a great visionary who heralded the Indian Muslim Renaissance. It was due to his great efforts that the rigidly religious mind of Indian Muslims began to show the first signs of a thaw. Educated Muslims began to redefine life in terms of modern age. They gave up the grand dream of converting India into Islam. This was the beginning of a great upheaval among educated Indian Muslims. A process of transformation had begun." But thereafter he laments, and again I quote, "The process was, however, ironically reversed because modern Indian Muslims proved themselves unequal for the task. Their modernity proved limited and they lacked the broad vision and could have ensured the complete success. Those who could have ensured the complete success of the alleged Renaissance led to its failure. Ironically, this very process separated the Muslims from the Hindus instead of bringing them closer together. The old Muslim habit of blaming the Hindus for their problems reappeared and was set more firmly thereafter." Over the period, however, he noticed a change. And in the chapter on humanistic modernism, he states, "However, now a new generation of Muslims is emerging in India today. One can see the first glimmers of a genuine modern humanism amongst them. In the vast mass of a medieval Muslim society, one witnesses a few young Muslims who have a modern, humanistic and rational attitude. They are still scattered and isolated like islands in a vast ocean, but they must come together." And then he asks a question, are we going to welcome these new trends? Are we going to encourage them and make them flourish? This is what we have to decide now. The hope which was expressed by Hamid Bhai and the trend which he was noticing is now gathering a very strong momentum. the movement for entry into the sanctum area of Dargah at Haji Ali, the petitions filed and the reflections of High Court of Allahabad and Madras on triple talaq and the Shariat courts are all pointers in that direction. There are, of course, simultaneous negative and regressive trends in both Hindu as well as Muslim societies. If Hamid Bhai were to be alive today, he would have certainly stood up against these negative trends. He was clear in his mind that religion was a personal affair, whereas aspects concerning society had to be governed by the decisions which are to be based on reason, modern science, humanism, and the egalitarian constitution of India. It is very interesting to note that in the beginning of his work on Muslim politics in India, he quotes Prophet Muhammad, who states, "When I order you anything respecting religion, receive it. And when I order you anything about the affairs of the world, then I am no more than a man." This quotation was included in the manuscript which was given to me, and with the permission of Vinodji Shershat, I am just pointing out that it has been left out in the book which has been published. The Marathi translation reads, "मी जेव्हा तुम्हाला काही धर्मविषयक आदेश देतो तेव्हा त्याचा स्वीकार करा, आणि जेव्हा मी तुम्हाला जगातील व्यवहाराबाबत आदेश देतो तेव्हा मी अन्य कोणी नाही, फक्त एक माणूस आहे." Now this in fact puts the philosophy of Hamid Bhai in the proper perspective. I spoke to Vinodji in the morning. Well, he said that there were conflicting interpretations. I thought the interpretation was very clear. The interpretation was Hamid Bhai also was very clear, which I understood, that as far as religious affairs are concerned, maybe you follow your religion, but as far as the worldly affairs are concerned, the prophet or any other such lawgiver is just like anybody else. That is what prophet himself says, and which is what Hamid Bhai has quoted in the English version of Muslim politics in India. Hamid Bhai was a warm human being with a very good sense of humor. He was a remarkable storyteller. It is sad that he could not spare more time for his literary contribution, but he sacrificed it for a greater cause because he was more concerned with those who were oppressed. His work can only be linked with the radical social reform movement initiated by Mahatma Phule and Dr. Ambedkar. He has a unique place in modern Indian history as the lone, fearless torchbearer who has carried forward the light lit by Sir Syed Ahmad. His contribution and thoughts are very much relevant in the present scenario. I can say that we were really very fortunate to have been associated with him, but unfortunately, in losing him at a stage when he could have contributed much more. There are many aspects of Hamid Bhai's writings and contribution on which one can continue to speak for a longer time, but due to the shortage and paucity of time, I have got to conclude. I once again thank Sadhana and all those associated with this release of book for giving me this opportunity, and to pay my tribute to Hamid Bhai and to you all, the members of audience, for listening to this last speech patiently. Thank you.